Bro tip.
If you had to go fishing for them, you could pick worse places than Lock and Dam 2. It's probably the best place on the Cape Fear River to fish. We catch, 300 American shad per hour of electrofishing.
That's a
It's
lot,
phenomenal.
folks. For you at home, that is a lot.
Okay, guys, we are back. We got a special guest today. I'm very proud to introduce Kyle Rachels. Kyle was my very first biologist that worked with me.
Somehow he stuck around.
He knows a lot about fish. He knows a lot about numbers. He knows a lot about computer code. He's everything that I'm not.
He is, yeah. Not to speak for Kyle, but I will say he's probably the antithesis of you.
He is
sure.
everything that I'm not, and that's why working with him was so enjoyable, because his strengths were my weaknesses. Some of you guys know that we did a lot of work on striped bass mortality. We're not going to be talking about that today, but Kyle did most of the work on that. And then he sat down, and for about a month, he tried to explain it to me very patiently, I might add, until I finally got it. And that's when I realized the dynamic was Kyle was the smart one and I was the loud one. And that's how we sold that research.
Yeah, and it worked out.
It worked out very well.
It worked out great, yeah.
So,
well, I will say before Kyle, we will let Kyle talk, we promise. The one thing I'll say about Kyle is generally we hire a lot of different types of biologists, right? Like we hire the really smart ones, the brainiacs that do the data crunching, all that kind of stuff. And then we hire the people that, know how to drive boats and change tires and work on equipment and run fisheries gear and all that. Kyle's all of those things.
he's the MacGyver.
He is the MacGyver of
biologist.
fisheries management. Like he's all of those things. Like he's going to be the guy that can run all the data analysis, but he's also the guy that can plug your tire.
Mm-hmm.
Which I really appreciate about Kyle. He has a wide ranging skill set, so that's really good.
There's been more than a couple of people that have pulled me aside and said, "Have you ever been in a boat with Kyle Rachels?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Man, he drive the fool out of that boat."
Yeah.
I'm like, he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's right.
So another interesting thing about Kyle is his dad was actually a fisheries biologist that worked for us. And part of that is and probably why he's so strong. And we're going to let you talk eventually.
Maybe.
But
it's iffy.
He grew up in this world that Corey and I talk about all the time. Kyle was neck deep in it from day one. And so I think that's also part of why he's such a strong fish biologist, is because for better or for worse, he didn't know there was anything else.
Yeah.
So
It happens that way.
Well, Kyle, tell everybody hello. Add to. You can make fun of us if you want to for a few minutes. But I know our folks want to hear from you. So
Sure, yeah, I appreciate that, Ben, and listening to it all. I think you always told me that the whole reason you hired me was because I was wearing a blue shirt. When we interviewed, it wasn't at all due to any kind of skills or anything like that. So it sounds like it works out for everybody, but I thought it was just a blue shirt.
Full disclosure, since we're here, I wasn't going to sell that story, but now we're here. Right before interviews for that position started, I was like, I think we just should hire whoever's wearing a blue shirt, like as a kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke.
Yes.
Well,
we do take hiring seriously here.
Exactly. Yeah, I was like, I think whoever's wearing a blue shirt will do fine.
He rolls in the door with a blue shirt.
Kyle was the only person who was wearing a blue shirt, and he knocked his interview just straight out of the park. So it made the decision easy. It also made me right when I said we'd hire the person wearing a blue shirt.
We know you like to be right. It's okay.
It doesn't happen all the time, so I have to
take the win when you can.
Moments, right. So, but yeah, Kyle and I, he got his master's degree in Arkansas. Then he came, he worked for me, or with me. I can't say he worked for me because we definitely were a team. He worked with me in District 2, and then District 4 opened up. And you guys have heard me talk about how it's interesting to be a biologist where you grew up, but Kyle also got that rare opportunity. So what's it like to be a biologist in the area you grew up fishing and investigating in your formative years, so to speak?
Yeah, it's it's really odd because when you get into this field, all of your professors and everyone says, you're never going to go back home. Like there's just so few fisheries jobs out there that you're going to have to go somewhere else. And you're usually just lucky if you end up in the same, if you want to go back and live in the same state that you grew up in. But yeah, it's really nice because it gave me a really good knowledge of the area that I'm fishing in, the area that I'm working in now. And so it's very rare in our field, and I'm really lucky to be able to do that.
Yes, it is. So what do you want to talk about today, Corey?
Whatever y'all want to talk about. I'm just here along to look at what's going on because this is the team right here, and I'm just kind of I'm the sideshow here today.
We had some good years, I will say.
Yeah.
Those were some good years. I mean, I've been lucky to work with a lot of very competent. Everyone I think was smarter than me.
And then there's now
biologists, and now I work with Corey, and that's been quite the adjustment.
Yeah.
But
your good luck runs out sometime. It's run out. Sorry.
But no, Kyle was it was me and Kyle there for a minute, and it was a lot of fun. So, but now Kyle works on the Cape Fear River. He works on a lot of things in the southern corner of coastal North Carolina, but the Cape Fear River is your primary water body, but also the lumber, the black. What else am I forgetting?
Northeast
Cape Fear.
Cover everything from the northeast Cape Fear River in the east to the Lumber River in the west. So Cape Fear River, Black River, also some of the lakes, Sutton Lake, White Lake, Lake Waccamaw. A lot of really smaller water bodies in the southeastern part of the state.
Yeah, a lot of you guys. Kyle has a fair number of the Carolina Bay lakes that are special and unique to the coast, really coastal North Carolina, and Kyle has a good portion of those, not all of them, but a good portion of them. Those are unique fisheries as well. But today we're going to talk about shad and the Cape Fear River. Does that sound like a good thing to talk about, Corey?
Spring is springing.
Spring is springing.
It's coming.
We thought that y'all might want to hear about something relatively timely.
Yeah. And I sure hope spring is springing, because if it stays this cold, I'm going to be mad.
Yeah, that groundhog.
Yeah, the groundhog. We're going to do something to him next year.
Yeah, we're going to get after him. But so we're going to talk about shad fishing. Everybody, the thing that I like about shad fishing is it's that first, maybe crappie in the same thread, but crappie maybe more, or shad maybe more so, is that first fish that really shows up on that first warm day that kind of gets everybody excited about fishing. Wouldn't you say that, Kyle?
I'd say so. And two, it's, when the shad season starts, it's usually really cold, but then at some point there, late March, early April, everything turns green. I mean, the leaves start springing, flowers start popping, and when that happens, that's when shad fishing's really heating up. So that's it. When the shad get there, spring sprung, like you said.
Right. Yeah, it's the first kind of sign of spring. I would agree with you that, like, exactly. First, there's no leaves, and by the time you're done catching shad, there's flowers and leaves on the trees and everything else. It's finally 70 degrees, and, we're all excited that we can catch a fish because we've been cooped up. And this year, dealing with snow, which is a very rare thing, especially for New Bern, North Carolina. So, but shad are a unique species. So let's walk through where shad are during what times of their life.
Sure, yeah. So, they live their adult lives out in the North Atlantic Ocean. They're hanging out the Bay of Fundy, the Bay of Maine, Gulf of Maine, and then they're out there as adults for anywhere from 3 to 5, 6, 7 years, as much as 10 years in some places, and then they're going to go back to their native river where they were born in order to spawn. So they're all the way from in Canada, there are rivers that are producing American shad, and then they're going to roll all the way down to Florida and all the rivers in between. So they come up into kind of to the fall line of our freshwater rivers to spawn. Those juveniles that are born and live, they're going to make it up to about 3 inches, usually about September or October of the year they were born. They're going out to the Atlantic Ocean, and then they'll come back, hopefully as adults, 3 to 4 years later.
So Just tell people like what the fall line is. What do you mean by when you say the fall line? Because we have the fall line in North Carolina and where that is.
Sure. So, they're coming up really to where the Piedmont and the coastal plain meet. So when you're in a river, that's what that's looking like is you're going from a slack water river kind of habitat to really the rocks. Once you start getting some rapids, some rocks, some big boulders in the river, that's where those American shad are kind of keying in on it. But American shad are a little unique too in that they'll zone in on the fall line, but a lot of American shad will just keep going. They want to go as far upstream as they can. And we actually have records from the 17 and 1800s in the Cape Fear River. They would go all the way upstream in the Deep River to Guilford County. So, some of those shad...
Which is practically the headwaters of the river.
Exactly. Yeah. They'll go as far upstream as they can swim.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when you look at maps, especially older maps, a lot of the creeks will be like Shad Creek, and we're almost in the mountains, and you're like, why is this named Shad Creek? And it's because some of those, there were runs that went so far up that they were named after shad for because they were there in the spring.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's true of all our coastal rivers, right? There's an area where they're going to find that rocky habitat where the coastal plain and the Piedmont meet, and they go to spawn. Correct? I mean, I am right about that, right?
That sounds about right.
Being chief, I've lost my biological mind, so I'm asking questions now. Sorry.
Good. Yes.
Yeah. So
survey says yes.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I know, like historically, before dams were introduced to these rivers, like on the Roanoke River, they would go well into the mountain region of Virginia. They would go into Roanoke, Virginia. That's where they would find a lot of
almost to your mama's house.
Almost to where really and truly where my mama used to live. That's where they were for sure. So that's just cool about them. I mean, you think about that fish. That's coming all the way from basically eastern Canada, all the way back here, and then going that far just in order to spawn. Pretty wild.
Yeah, it's phenomenal for a fish to do that. And then that's in some of the rivers where we see where the shad aren't doing as well. It's usually places where they're either through dam construction or something like that, habitat degradation. They're not able to get up and as far into those headwaters and that spawning habitat as other rivers and other populations can.
Yeah, impediments. It can be water quality issues, but impediments probably are their biggest issue for sure.
So, how many species of shad do we see in the Cape Fear River? Sorry.
Sure. So we have the two species of river herring. That's blueback herring and alewife. They're in the same family as shad that we're talking about. Along with American shad, there's also hickory shad. And so we have all four of those species in the Cape Fear River. American shad are the most abundant, which is a little different than most of our coastal rivers in North Carolina. And most of our rivers in North Carolina, you're going to have more blueback herring, you're going to have more hickory shad. But the Cape Fear River it has those, but really American shad are the most dominant in the Cape Fear.
So if you're a fisherman, and you're saying, I want to go catch an American shad and not a hickory shad. I've caught all let's say I live in Weldon, and I did live in Roanoke Rapids, but let's say I live there, and I was like, I want to go catch an American shad. I'm tired of catching hickory shad. Cape Fear would be a good place to go. I mean, there are American shad in the Roanoke, but the dominant species in the Cape Fear be American shad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Cape Fears, if you've caught all the hickory shad everywhere else, and you're ready for American shad, hit the Cape Fear, because we see a few hickory shad in the lowermost stretches of the Cape Fear, but 9.5 times out of 10, you're catching American shad if you catch a shad at all.
Do we know why that is?
I don't think we really know why that is. Like I said, we have those hickory shad. We see them in the lower river and in some of the tributaries around Wilmington, but they don't seem to come upstream to the locks and dams or further upstream in the Cape Fear.
Yeah.
Like they do, in the Noose or in the Tar or anywhere like that.
And I mean, one good thing about an American shad, if you're going to have a shad, that's the one to have. It's the biggest one.
Yeah.
Of what we have, it's the biggest one. If you were trying to catch a shad that's, over 3 pounds, that's the one to go after.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're shad fishing, we'll talk more about shad fishing, hopefully, as this conversation goes along. But the thing about shad fishing, the strike of a hickory shad feels like a fish biting. The strike of an American shad, you're like, I'm hung.
Yeah.
That's
and right.
You think you're hung for a brief minute, and then you feel that hang move.
Yeah,
you're
the
like,
line the line's moving.
Oh, wait. But it's such a different, heavier, a lot of times they're in fast current as well, so it'll just stop, and you'll feel like you're hung for a second, and then you go, well, I'm in 8 foot of water. There's no reason I would be hung here, and then all of a sudden it moves on you. So they definitely are the biggest. They pull the hardest. Some say they taste better.
And whatever, they can, whoever wants to eat shad, they can eat them. I know there's people listening to us that love to eat shad. I just ain't one of them.
My people's is shad eaters.
I know my daddy's peoples are shad eaters, but I am not.
So if you would like to try a shad, well, now that we're here, let's describe what you're in for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have to eat shad knowing it's shad. That's key number one.
That's the first hurdle to get over.
Right. Because it is an oilier fish, is a stronger taste. Because of that, it's a little bit stronger tasting. So if you are somebody that likes a really mild, flaky fillet, if you like striped bass and grouper and that kind of thing.
This ain't the fish for you.
This might not be your cup of tea because it is they have a whole lot more oil in it. However, if you're down with omegas in your diet, it's probably a strong option.
Yes.
So,
yes. Have you eaten them?
I've had a little bit of shad, and I'm not going out looking for them anymore.
There you go. I understand.
Love to catch them.
Mm-hmm. Not so much on the eating them.
Love to catch them. They are not my first choice as far as eating, but I wouldn't say no.
Well, I mean, so
sometimes I get hungry.
So the thing about, that's true. I mean, it does depend on how hungry you are. I like oily, I like bluefish.
Mm-hmm.
Like bluefish I can eat a bluefish all day long, twice on Sunday. It's good to me. But for whatever reason, I don't know. I'm just not a shad eater. I know there's a lot of people from Eastern North Carolina. They're my folks, and they eat shad, and I love you, and keep on eating. It seems
like if you grew up doing it, you're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And so will your kids, etc. If you did not grow up doing it, it's kind of a taste that's maybe aged out.
And it's different, than river herring.
Yes.
Like river herring are prepared differently.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we eat river herring now in North Carolina because there's a moratorium on them, but
historically
you could eat river herring, and I've done that too, and those are different than shad to me. It's just it's all in the preparation, and river herring are not nearly as big, so it's a little different type texture too.
It's an acquired taste.
Yeah, it is. It's just different. And if you grew up doing it, it's second nature, and my folks grew up doing it, so it was second nature. But my dad doesn't love them. So, I mean, you can not like them.
If there's anything we know about this world, you can like or not like whatever you
This is true. This is very, very true. That's facts.
So, but there's a lot of people that like them. It's more of a traditional food fishery. But more currently, it is a very popular recreational fishery. Fly fishermen like them because they're very susceptible to flies. Ultralight and light angler fishermen like them because, you can throw any kind of brightly colored thing. And it's more of a reaction strike than it is actually a feeding strike because what they eat are little bitty copepods and zooplankton and things like that. And what you're using to fish is not that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, they hit out of aggravation. So a lot of times your fluorescent colors, your golds, your silvers, your yellow, orange, your real bright colors seem to work.
You shifted into fishing real fast. You went on it.
Buddy, we've been cooped up in this snow. I want to talk about fishing.
Well, one thing I'll go back and say, historically, even before settlers were here, Native Americans depended on that run of fish coming into the river as a protein source. They utilized it, and then Europeans, when they got here, they've utilized it. And so that history is definitely something that I fear we might be losing a little bit in the coastal plain for a lot of reasons. But it was one of the things that, my dad growing up, the shad run was a big deal. The river herring run was a big deal. It was a big deal to all the communities in the eastern part of the state. And I would say, for the most part, that still is the case, particularly with shad. It's still the case. A lot of people still go fishing for them.
Oh, it's a very big deal. In fact, if I don't throw this pitch out there, my mom's going to get mad at me. So I'm going to do this.
Well, don't want mama mad at you. She feeds you.
For those of you, well, she used to. Now I'm kind of on my own most of the time.
Yeah.
But
when you go to her house, she's going to feed you.
There is some truth there. So, but those of you who love reading books, American shad is a historically important fish, especially during the Revolutionary War, because, George Washington was in hard times in the winter, and then the shad showed up, and they finally had something to eat. So there's a book called The Fountain Fish. Look it up. I just gave you like 3 seconds of it. It's a very interesting book about the role that a fish played in our country, which we don't often think about how important a fish run could be for our history, but it is. It can be. So Kyle, before I get into fishing, because somebody said I jumped to fishing way too quick.
I'm good with it.
The elephant in the room when it comes to the Cape Fear River is there's locks and dams that are on the Cape Fear. They've been there for a long time. How do they impact these large fish migrations?
It's, all of our coastal rivers have dams. The Neuse, Tar, Roanoke, they have those dams up at the fall line, where the Piedmont's starting. But the Cape Fear is the only one. It's unique in that it has those 3 locks and dams that are well down in the coastal plain. So really, once you get out of Wilmington, about 20 miles, you hit the first dam. And these aren't huge dams like Jordan Lake or Falls Lake. These are low head dams, about 10 to 15 feet tall at the most at low water. And they were built for navigation by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So they would actually, have a lock chamber on the side of it, move a boat upstream, and it was designed to get commercial boats from Wilmington to Fayetteville. But now they're not used for that navigation purpose anymore. Each of those 3 dams, the locks don't work anymore. So really you had to have a huge flood event for fish to get over and past those dams. So that's the biggest impediment for migrating fish populations is they have to have a certain amount of flow to get over those dams in order to get to the next location upstream. And then eventually, hopefully, if we have enough water, for those fish to get up to the Piedmont and to their historical spawning grounds.
Right. So if I'm a fish and I'm trying to get to my spawning grounds and there's a giant concrete wall in my way, that may have some impacts on my spawning success.
Yeah, definitely. That's a bit of a problem if you're trying to get upstream and you just can't get over that 10, 15-foot barrier. That's a problem.
Say they get over that 10, 15-foot barrier. Is it a problem coming back?
It can be. So the Cape Fear it's more like the southern populations of shad. So as you go further north, you get repeat spawning of shad. But the further south you go, they're just going to make that one shad run. And most of the shad in the Cape Fear River, they're just making one spawn and run and they're dying. But after they lay those eggs, depending on what the flows are in the river at that time, they still have to come downstream, and those smaller fish have to come downstream. So it absolutely, if there's not enough flow in the river at that time and those eggs and juveniles coming down, that slows their progression. They become more vulnerable to predation. It's easy for them to get kind of just deposited at the bottom of the river. So it's a problem for fish coming upstream and juveniles coming back downstream.
So should we put the fancy word for if you spawn one time and die out there for everybody?
Yes, let's do it. Fish nerd out for a minute.
Fish nerd out for a minute.
Yeah.
So there's 2 types of fish. There's iteroparis and simiparis. Itero means you do it multiple times. Simil is once. So our shad that are in the Cape Fear, for example, the vast majority of them are one-time spawners, right?
Yeah,
that's what you just said?
Absolutely. Over 90% of the Cape Fear shad are simiparis.
Yeah, and if you catch a shad late in the season in the Cape Fear or even like in the Neuse too, I've caught them late in like when I say late in the season, it'd be like June. They look rough, like they're in trouble.
Absolutely.
They're on their way out the door.
Yeah.
they're on the struggle bus if they're still around in June. So yeah, it's just like what a lot of salmon species in the Northwest. It's very similar type thing. They just go up the river, they spawn, they die. They provide nutrients into the system that help young, maybe not quite as much as salmon, but it's a very similar type thing. But as you move further north, so like you get into the Northeast, those American shad are not doing that, right? They're going multiple times before their lifespan is up, right?
Absolutely, yeah. They're more iteroparis as you go further north and spawning multiple times in their lifetime.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I think
slight science nerd moment.
I think the oldest shad that I have seen in North Carolina was about 10 years old. Most of ours are maybe 4 to 7.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
So You know, you think they don't show up till they're about 4 years old, so they get maybe 2 to 3 spawns out, give or take, before they've run their course. So it's amazing to me. This is part of why I became a fish biologist. It is amazing to me that a fish can go from can be born in North Carolina, go to the Bay of Fundy, and then come right back to where it was born. Kind of like the way Kyle and I became fish biologists.
Y'all are the
the
Alocenes of fish biology.
We grew up in coastal North Carolina. We went somewhere else, and then we came back to where we were from. So
there you have it.
So maybe that's why Shad are so special to me. We're kindred spirits.
That's it.
Homebodies.
And y'all went away for a while, both of you.
Yeah.
To A states, one to Arkansas, one to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things going on here that are very similar, other than your polar opposites. But I digress. Right.
So, the other thing about the locks is that locking Dam 1 looks a little bit different than the rest of them. Talk to us a little bit about what's at Locking Dam 1.
Sure. So in 2012, 2013, the Rock Arch Rapids was completed, and that's a nature-like fishway. So it is basically, it looks like a big pile of boulders was placed on top of the dam. If you didn't even know any better, you wouldn't be able to tell a dam was there originally. So it's a really large complex of boulders that's put out there in a design trying to get those fish upstream, so they can kind of swim into this structure. They have certain pathways where if there's enough flow, and usually there is for American shad at least, for them to actually swim upstream on their own and keep traveling upstream.
So the shad can get over Locking Dam 1.
Yep.
In order for them to get over Locking Dam 2 or 3, though, we have to have kind of a pulse of rain, a pulse event where they can swim over the dam and keep on getting it, correct?
Correct. And it has to be a pretty decent flood event, too. So, for example, last year was a little unique, but we actually didn't have any flood events during the migratory spawning season for those shad to get over Locking Dam 3. So all of them stayed below Locking Dams 2 and 3 last year.
So what happens if they can't get where they would like to get or where they need to get?
We're lucky in that, those dams have been there now for almost 100 years, and we still have shad populations, wild, natural shad populations in the Cape Fear. It's not a population we've ever stocked into, and they're self-sustaining, so they're still doing their thing. And in those bad years where they're not able to get upstream, they do have enough spawning output below the dams to keep that population going. But presumptively, we're assuming that success is not as good as it would be if they were able to get upstream into their, preferred spawning habitat.
So as long, bad years, meaning dry years where the water's low, as long as we don't have multiple bad years in succession, we should be okay. One bad year's not going to kill us, but five really dry years in a row could be problematic.
5 dry years in a row could be problematic. And it's not in isolation either. There's always, other stressors that could be impacting those fish. So, water quality the amount of water just being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that could impact it.
I don't know enough about the Cape Fear, so I'll ask this question. So in a dry year, for example, I'm assuming there's like a herd of them below like Locking Dam 2. Would that be an accurate statement? I'm thinking about if I wanted to go fishing for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pro tip.
Yeah, if you had to go fishing for them, you could pick worse places than Locking Dam 2. That's where I recommend most people, because it's probably the best place on the Cape Fear River to fish, both from the bank and from a boat. So many of the other places, it's really more of a boat fishery, but you can fish at them from the bank at Locking Dam 2 in Elizabethtown. But yeah, we catch, 300 American shad per hour of electrofishing, which is
that's a lot,
phenomenal.
Folks. For you at home, that is a lot.
Yeah,
like 300 of anything per hour other than a bluegill. And that might even be a lot for a bluegill.
Yeah, it's as many fish as you can see.
That's more than you can dip as they come up. That's more than you can dip.
It's a workout, and it's more than we can get. If we had more people on the boat, we could catch more fish than that. So yeah,
you're basically gear saturated.
We are gear saturated. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of fish.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Elizabethtown, y'all know that I'm from Roanoke Rapids, but my grandparents actually lived right down the road from E-Town. So I spent some time on the Cape Fear growing up and running along the banks and that kind of thing. So it was really neat when I went down to sample fish with Kyle and seeing it from that perspective. It kind of was interesting, and drive past my grandparents' house on the way to the boat ramp and that kind of stuff. And when got us a hamburger at Melvin's, which my granddaddy always called the pool room. But
It's the pool room.
yeah. So
Have no idea I know where Elizabethtown is, but I have no idea what you're talking about at this point.
if you get there, we'll tell you where to go get a hamburger.
That sounds great. I like to eat, so
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I like eating good places too.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a good hamburger. Limited menu, but what they do well.
That's my kind of place.
I'd recommend that over the shad that you might catch.
Yeah. You didn't, anything would have been over that for me. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Not a shad eater, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So back to going, if I want to go catch them, below Locking Dam 2 is a really good spot to probably target in the river.
Absolutely. That's probably
Is there a time of year, or are they they're just kind of there? I mean, we're talking about spring, but are they like really hot at a certain period of time, or are they just kind of there throughout the entire spring?
It really depends on flow, but most years, the last week of March till mid-April is consistently kind of the peak of the shad run.
So it's about a 3-week swing.
It's about a 3-week swing, but it is flow dependent. So if there's a big flood pulse that gets those shad upstream of Locking Dam 2, you could show up right in the middle of that window and just strike out because all the fish are up at Locking Dam 3 or further upstream instead.
Gotcha.
So you really have to pay attention to flood events, rainfall, and if those fish have moved upstream or not.
So,
Gotcha.
And Kyle and I have talked about this a lot. If you like this podcast, you should listen to the next month's podcast where we'll have Jeff Evans on, who is one of our hatchery geniuses. That's what I'll call him.
That's what I'd call him.
And anadromous fish are really interesting because he spawns these fish for his job, or he did. We're not currently spawning them, but for several years, he spawned these fish for his job. And he would always say, it's going to fall, at first or second week in April, plus or minus a couple of weeks. And they are fairly predictable. So
Yeah.
I'm saying that as a fisherman, if you do good on a certain day, you might want to plan your trip, not necessarily on that exact same day, but use that as a frame for when you need to plan your trip, because these fish are pretty predictable. And the weather patterns, we have cold winters, we have hot springs, but really these fish generally show up about the same time within a week or two every year.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, whatever the fishery is that has a spring run, whether it's white bass, hybrid striped bass, all the shads on the coast, anglers oftentimes, when it warms up fast, like in February, we'll get a warm spell. Come on, we're going to get a warm spell in February.
Please.
Please.
One warm spell.
Well, I'll just take one. Anglers get an itch. They're ready to go fishing. They're like, oh, yeah, they're going to be in the river early. They're going to be this early. They're going to do this early. And we'll talk to Jeff next month. But Jeff will always be like, nah.
He's unflappable.
He's unflappable. He's like, nah. It's going to be 1 week or so on either side of this 2-week period every time. And he's pretty much right. There's very rarely. It goes to show it's not all about temperature. There's photo period involved. There's flow rates that are involved. There's so many other factors that key these fish on. And it's really probably photo period more than anything, because it's consistently in that same time frame year after year after year after year. And Jeff is unflat. Like Jeff be like, I don't care. I don't care that they say it's early. It's not early. It's going to be the same time anyway. That's just a tip for anglers. Like if you find that these fish show up in your spot in the river during this time of year, it's probably going to be 1 week or two on the other side of that week that you're fishing, that they're going to be there every year.
Yeah, as much as any of the migratory species, I think American shad can read a calendar, and they're keying off of that. And it's tough for some folks who are out there fishing for shad every single year, and they show up in February or March. Some people just want to be the first one to catch the shad on the year.
There's a race. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, there's people fishing for shad right now.
And they are catching a few
And
already.
catching them right now. Yeah.
But yeah,
and it's cold.
I mean, generally,
It's freezing.
the first shad reports that we get are sometime late January. It does not mean you should go fish for shad in January. It means you can catch a shad in January.
I mean, I like shad fishing, but I don't mean ugly. But there is no way on God's green earth I'd stand on the bank right now in 15 degrees fishing for a shad. I just wouldn't do it. I'm just not.
You'd rather wait till they stack up.
Yes, I'd rather wait to catch, because I'm probably going to catch one or two.
It's all about your goals, right?
Yeah.
If your goal is to catch the first one, you got to start early.
It's not a judgment. I'm just telling you how I feel. It's not a judgment on the other person. The other person can go fishing all they want.
The early bird gets the American shad.
Yeah, that's very true. And there's always somebody that's posting on social media about, I caught this shad in January somewhere, and it's American.
One thing I will say about shad fishing, and American shad in particular, it's a little bit different on the Cape Fear because they're really the only thing that the anglers seek out. But on the rest of our coastal rivers, hickory shad are kind of the number one game in town, mainly because hickory shad are, in all honesty, in my opinion, a little bit easier to catch than American shad.
I would agree with that.
But they focus on hickory shad, and when the hickory shad run is done, they're like, well, I'm on to the next thing. And they kind of ignore the fact that they've got another solid month of American shad fishing. And so that's something else I'd like to tell our listeners is, don't give up when you quit catching hickory shad, because the American shad is really just peaking at the time that you're giving up. So
when do American shad start showing up in the Cape Fear, and about how long does that? You said the peak was those first couple weeks in April to end of March kind of area, but when does that peak kind of subside? When do you start not really seeing much of them anymore at that point?
Yeah, the Cape Fear, it's important to keep in mind it's the southernmost of our major rivers, so it's a little earlier than the Tar, Neuse, Roanoke. We start to see really big pulses of those fish come in March. So usually, like Ben said, it's, someone's already caught the first shad on the Cape Fear this year. And we're in February right now. The peak going to be mid-March to mid-April. And then really, if water temperatures are warm, say about 70 degrees or so, they peter out really quick. And since they're all that simulparous word, they're just spawning one time and dying. Usually they quit biting by the last week of April, first week of May. So even though they can be,
they wrap up quick.
They wrap up quick, and I don't know if it's more frustrating or less frustrating, because if the water's low and the water is really clear, then at those locks and dams you can see the fish swimming in the water, right next to the lock chamber, and you just can't catch them. They're just not striking. They're not hitting. Some of the late shad that come in, we call them May shad. They're still fresh. They'll strike. But those are really just a minority. Most of those fish have already peaked by late April and moved on.
Cool. I got one question, and then I want it. Then can it be time for us to talk about fishing?
We can talk about fishing anytime. Sorry.
Okay. Well, Kyle,
I feel like I've diverted you. I apologize for that.
I just want to talk to somebody about fishing.
I understand.
So it's been a cold winter. I've been cooped up.
I know. I get it.
Kyle does these surveys, and he's already talked about how the shad stack up below the locks. I'm just wondering if you see anything else that stacks up below the locks and what they might be.
Shad's definitely the most abundant fish that stack up behind those locks. We don't see many herring, but we do see a few herring, and it's something that if an angler's out there, they need to realize, they could catch, because the regulations are a lot different. You can't keep any herring. And then the other one's striped bass.
Herring is a blue light special. So do not keep them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Know what you're looking at.
Absolutely. And, but yeah, striped bass, on the Cape Fear, that's another one you cannot keep, but we do see striped bass. Those are all hatchery raised striped bass on the Cape Fear. There's not a natural self-sustaining wild run of striped bass, but we do see a few striped bass. Usually we see most of those striped bass at the first lock and dam at the Rock Arch Rapids. Much fewer of those are actually able to get above the Rock Arch Rapids and get further upstream to lock and dams 2, 3, or further upstream.
Well, was it last year or the year before last that you saw a sturgeon in that stretch?
That was 2 years ago. We saw a sturgeon. Yeah, so we do have a sturgeon run, a wild sturgeon run, Atlantic sturgeon, and they do spawn right below Lock and Dam 1, and they those are just phenomenal fish. We rarely see them, but when anytime you have a 6, 7, 8 foot fish, right next to you, it's something to see.
Cool animal.
Yeah, my granddad used to talk about them, and they, when they were more prolific, and they'd see them. I think they even ate a few.
I'm sure.
I don't know anything. I mean, my granddad ate about anything. So.
Yeah. Well, they say they're delicious.
An apple don't fall from
You want to talk about a blue light special? Keep a sturgeon. That is a big blue light special.
Yeah, don't do that. But
don't do that.
Now it's just a unique fish.
Yeah,
that
they're very rare now.
I mean, I've seen just a handful in my career. So, can we talk about fishing?
Yeah, for a few minutes.
I want to talk about fishing for just a handful of minutes. So, these shad are stacked up, and the water's relatively deep, and relatively fast flowing. And
Correct.
so that, and I'm gonna let Kyle correct me if I'm wrong, because he sees guys fishing for these every day, and so he may be able to tweak my rig a little bit. Adding a little extra weight because the water is so fast is going to help you get your hookup. It's going to help you get your bait down in front of the fish. A lot of people are catching them off the bank. Some folks are catching them out of boats. The funny thing about shad is they're a schooling fish. American shad in particular, as anglers, we're used to fishing eddies. And American shad are like, eddies are for losers.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
American shad are sitting nose in the hardest, fastest current. A lot of times that will be right beside an eddy. So you think you're fishing the eddy, and then you realize
they're out.
They hit your bait as soon as you cross that current seam. And so because of that, a little bit of extra weight can be really helpful. And what I have done over the years is, with a fly rod, I use sinking line. But with a spinning rod or with ultralight or light gear, a lot of times I'll tie a jig or a spoon, a 2-inch jig or a 2-inch spoon, 1-inch jig or 1-inch spoon, somewhere in that family of sizes, about a foot long leader to a swivel, and then above it I'll put an egg sinker, and that allows me, if it's a dry year and there's not so much, I use a lighter egg sinker. If it's a super fast flowing year with a lot of flow, I might use something a little bit heavier to get it down. And you kind of got to experiment to figure out where in the water column your bait needs to be. But the thing that I really like about shad is because they're schooling fish. If you find out, okay, the boat's anchored here, and I cast at a 45-degree angle off the boat and start reeling, and I get a bite, you better do that
100 times
the rest of your day, because those fish will sit there, and it might be 80 fish sitting right there, all nose into the current. And if you bring them by, your chances of getting one of them to bite is fairly good.
Yep.
So
it's one of those fisheries that if you're new to fishing, or you're taking somebody new to fishing, whether it be a child or it can be an adult for that matter, your success rate, if you find them, can be really good.
Yeah.
And the action can be really fast.
And the good thing about shad, I think, is the shad fishermen are a bit of a community.
Yeah.
There's always a fisherman or two that has their secrets. Don't get me wrong. But shad fishing is a community. There's Facebook groups that are all about shad fishing all over the North Carolina and the country for that matter. And folks are willing to help you out and learn how to do it. There's a lot of resources out there, and there's a bit of a community, because a lot of shad fishing is bank fishing. And so people know, if I go to this bridge, or if I go below this dam, or, I go to Lock and Dam 2, that I'll be able to catch a shad there. And so it's kind of a known thing. And, if it's a community hole, then it's a community activity, so to speak. So
is there a particular color on the Cape Fear that everybody seems to like?
It varies, but we do see a lot of chartreuse. Yeah, a lot of neon out there. Yeah, and we see folks throwing shad dart spoons, and we'll just see curly tail jigs. So pretty much anything folks are targeting shad for anywhere is what we see.
And the baits are fairly small.
They're pretty small, 2 inches and less.
Yeah. There is the classic shad rig.
Yeah.
Which you can pick up at a tackle starting about today. they will be in a tackle store near you, and they'll fade away about by May, and then they'll show up again.
Yeah.
But it'll be a little hair jig, about a foot and then about a foot below that, there'll be a spoon.
Mm-hmm.
You can see them from chrome to gold to hot pink,
to white.
And what I have found
Green.
is the muddier the water is, the more you got to throw fluorescent orange, hot pink, chartreuse. The cleaner the water is, your kind of golds. If it's overcast, gold. If it's a bright sunny day, silver. But your whites will work better too. So it also kind of, depending on the clarity of the water, the noose is muddy a lot of the time. On the noose, we see guys throwing chartreuse and pink religiously. The Roanoke, much clearer typically, and you see them throwing whites, white and pink, gold, silver, that kind of thing. So it really just, and then the Cape Fear could be muddy one day, could be clear a few days later. So you kind of have to match whatever's going on. But that's the beauty of the shad rig, right? You can time on yourself.
Yeah, you can
put one color here, one color there, and you're doing both.
Yeah, you can do both at the same time for sure. Yep.
The other thing is that I like about shad fishing is with, $15 worth of tackle. Yeah. And that would get you through the season.
Yes. I agree. Should.
A couple jigs, couple spoons, couple swivels, some egg sinkers, not a lot of investment, and you can use pretty much any fishing rod that you can get your hands on, aside from maybe a 9-foot surf rod or something, 80 wide.
Yeah, you don't need a super heavy on this.
But if you got something you can cast, you can probably catch a shad on it. And yeah, I normally use light or ultra light, but you could use a medium action and you have a lot of fun with it too. When I'm seeing folks fishing, when we're doing our creel surveys, you see the full spectrum.
See the gamut.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And it all works, and they're all having a fun time. So on the fly rods, you could use anywhere, from if you want to go light, you could go with a 3-weight. You could go up to a 5 or a 6-weight. And again, that may just depend on what you have laying around.
So, Kyle, before we get to questions, what, if anything, what else would you want people to know about the shad fishery on the Cape Fear?
It is probably the best thing to fish for on the Cape Fear River, other than maybe catfish that's available year round. And get out there and enjoy it. The only other thing is, just being around those lock and dam structures is just keep in mind safety, because it's really easy to flip a boat in high water over there, or get caught in that kind of washing machine lock and dam effect. So, just be safe out there.
Good advice for sure. We ready for questions, boss man?
We are ready for questions.
All right, do it.
I got a favor to ask our audience before we get there.
Sounds great.
I'm totally springing this on everybody. I got a PE teacher that needs a fly rod for her fishing program. If you've got an old fly rod leaning up in a corner that doesn't have a home, you email us at biologist@ncwildlife.gov.
We're going to get 800 fly rods.
And we're going to get a fly rod. I'll let you know when it's done. So if I get more than one, I'll get it to a different school.
There you go. Sounds great.
Or if you're on the fence and you want to make sure I've got one before you give me mine, you can email me at biologist@ncwildlife.gov, and I'll say, no, we're covered.
Yeah, sounds great.
But yeah, if we get a bunch of fly rods, we'll make sure they find some kids. I'm not worried about that.
We'll know how to handle it.
As far as problems go,
that's a good problem.
Welcome that one.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about our. You guys are awesome. Y'all send us questions all the time. They're always unique. Well, not always unique, but you send us a lot of good questions.
Yeah.
This one we have not answered on the podcast yet.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
This email was sent to us January 23rd. He caught some crappie. One was 1 pound, 14 ounces.
That's pretty good.
Good one.
I'd eat that.
He caught some females that already had eggs, and he said, is this normal of crappie? Are they going to have a false spawn as a result of seeing eggs in these fish that early?
The answer to that is yes, it is normal. And the follow-up answer to that is no, they likely will not have a false spawn. It will be a regular spawn. Eggs and crappie show up way early. I mean, like when we're doing our fall samples, there's eggs and crappie.
They have eggs.
Yeah.
And
it takes a long time for eggs to reach that maturation point where they're ready to be spawned. And that's true of probably every species. Some fish are really slow on maturation because they put so much investment in their eggs. I wouldn't say crappie put a whole lot of investment in their eggs, but they have eggs for a long period of time.
Immediately after crappie spawn, they will still have eggs in them.
Yes,
too.
yes.
So
they don't fully expend all the eggs. Sometimes they get reabsorbed, and then they'll come next fall. You'll start seeing eggs again in crappie. I mean, it's just a part of their species, and they'll start spawning. I mean, we're not far. They'll start spawning in February into March. Peak in that same general time frame of April, late March, early April, as a lot of species do in North Carolina. But you can see crappie on the bank as early as February. So,
So next question, Mr. Winchester. He grew up fishing blackwater tidal rivers in the panhandle of Florida. Very unique systems.
yes.
He's a fan of warmouth, and now he lives near Lake Wylie.
Ooh.
Can he catch a warmouth?
In Lake Wylie?
Yes.
My short answer would be yes. Warmouth are pretty much existent throughout the state of North Carolina. They're probably not as abundant in the reservoir itself, but if you get up in the riverine systems of Lake Wylie, get in the South Fork Catawba, you'll probably run into warmouth up there for sure. I don't know how abundant they are in the Catawba system. Right off the top of my head, they're in the Catawba system. I just don't know how abundant they are, and we don't see them. We just don't see them in reservoirs very often. They just fall out. They just don't really seem to do well, at least in the reservoirs that I've worked in.
Kyle, I would approve of that answer. Do you approve of that answer?
Sounds about right.
Okay. All right. I thought it was a great answer. That was
my fish biology is getting worse and worse. It's waning because I'm not using it as much. But go ahead, continue.
Okay. Next question. This is just a email that I wanted to share with you guys. Mr. Hughes, he sent us a bunch of pictures of his fishing journeys.
I like that.
He caught trout. He caught perch. He caught catfish. He caught bass.
It's my kind of guy.
And he says that even though he's a South Carolina angler, we're not going to hold that against him. He is a listener.
Maybe he's not my guy.
He is a listener. So we'd invite him to come to North Carolina.
We would. Well,
he listens
as long
to
as he doesn't stay. Just as long as he goes back. Go ahead.
You got problems with South Carolina people now?
It's just the invasion.
This soapbox.
I know.
Anyway, moving on.
Horrible. I know.
Mr. Hughes,
we love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He listens to the podcast religiously, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's helped him to grow into a good trout rate angler and a mediocre everything else angler, which I get that because I have days where I'm definitely mediocre.
I'm mediocre at best at everything, so I'm good with that.
Right.
Yeah.
He says, thank you for all you do, and he hopes we enjoy the photos. And he sent us a bunch of photos from his adventures, and that's really why we're doing this.
Oh.
So
there's no question. He's just thanking us.
Just keep it up,
man.
So
we need to send him something.
Yeah, he might be our winner.
I think he should be.
He's our winner.
Yeah.
So, but no, I mean, he's getting his son out there, which also, if you want to send us a picture of your kid, that influences
that does help.
Your chances of being randomly drawn.
Does help.
So
and letters like this make our ego get a little larger, so that helps too.
I mean, we're doing it for you guys, and so we really want to make sure that it's beneficial and useful for you.
Yeah.
So if it's not, send us an email at twoballbiologists@ncwildlife.gov
and tell us what we're doing wrong,
and we'll fix it.
Yeah.
Or not. We'll see.
Yeah.
Depends on
your suggestion. If we don't like it, we probably won't do it.
Some things we can't control.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but with that, I just want to thank Kyle for coming out. He's got a lot going on today, but he said he'd come. So, so I really
squeezed us in. He's got a busy schedule. So
I appreciate him showing up. He is a wealth of information. If you want to know something about the Cape Fear River, reach out to Kyle Rachel's. You can email the podcast and we'll get you in touch with him. It's not a problem at all.
Here's the thing about Kyle, and I'll finish with this. Not only we talked about him growing up there, his wealth of information goes back a long time because his dad was working in the exact same rivers. And so Kyle saw it all, and now Kyle's seeing it all now. And Kyle knows so much about this area of the state. So if you got questions, by all means, reach out to Kyle. He'll be more than willing to help out, I think. Right, Kyle?
That's right.
Thanks, Kyle, for being here. We really appreciate it.